Okay, here we are again. Gonna do a video on Pete Hegseth and try and prove to you people, well, I don't really want to prove anything. I want to know what you all think and let me know where I might be wrong because old Peter Hegseth, I understand you guys didn't have much to choose from when electing. You had demons on one side and reptiles on the other. Which one do you choose? Well, at least the reptiles are a bit of chameleons, you know what I mean? They look good every once in a while and say some good shit. But anyways, I'm just saying, America, if you are led by people who are led by demons and saying that they're following Jesus, you should probably check yourself and start talking amongst one another if these people should be your leaders, especially you Christians out there who, well, follow Jesus. But hey, if you allow this to go on, that's up to you, because we know Pete lied about the Signal app messages, right? Like, I can play that video again where he clearly says he did not give out any classified information. And well, like one press person said it best. Hey, what would have happened if that journalist would have sent it to the enemy? Would that have caused some problems? Would it have been classified then? Well, the answer would be yes, but Pete denied the whole thing. But I didn't see his congressional hearing, so you guys let me know where I'm wrong, because I don't like to be judgmental, but old Petey thinks he's with Jesus, and I think it's the old Deb he's with, and well, Peter's working his way to hell right now.
Mr. Hegseth, I'm looking forward to this opportunity to talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just filed.
He believes so. He's not sure.
By a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're
Wow. Men change. Cheaters can change. They can learn from their mistakes and become better men. But remember, in order to be better men, you have to come to terms with the mistakes that you made and talk about them freely.
cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you were completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was,
and she's here.
She is a child of God, but I don't like the way old Peter talks about God, because I don't think he's with God. But you guys let me know, because, well, I think it's best that Peter knows he's probably not with God, because, well, not telling him, well, that wouldn't be the Christ thing to do, you know what I mean? You always got to try to tell people the truth, but I want you guys to help me, and maybe we can help Pete.
On the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges. It was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I'm so grateful for the marriage I have to this.
No, you've admitted that you had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual, isn't that correct?
I'm going to have to look into this a little closer. So did Pete have his second wife, and then he did something and got that person pregnant, and then another one? I don't know.
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
Again,
how do you explain your judgment?
Completely false charges against me. You fully investigated, and I was completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense.
Now, pay attention. Pay attention here, okay?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
The answer should be yes, but it says He won't answer. He says, that's a false claim. He's not asking if there was a claim. They said, if a man who does sexual assault, should he be the Secretary of Defense? And the guy who becomes Secretary of Defense can't answer the simple question, but maybe I'm misinterpreting.
You talking about a hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge,
And it was
but you
fully
acknowledge
investigated.
that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman who by you.
Now, I know today's standards, we don't really care if somebody cheats on their wife. It's, it's the standard. But me, I go back to thinking like God. And if a man's going to cheat on his wife, the one he's supposed to love the most. I'm not saying men can't make mistakes and still want the best for people. That's not what I'm saying. But if they consistently cheat on the ones that they love, do you think they'll cheat against their country? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Just fathered a child. You've admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked the simple.
Not perfect person. Nobody's perfect, right? We all make mistakes, but do we admit to them? And that's where this gets good.
You've taken an oath, like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
In finalizing,
I think Peter's into that Jesus died for my sins thing. And, well, if I act like an idiot and do whatever, as long as I believe in his name, I'm okay. Well, Peter, you got to act right, bud. You know what I mean? You got to tell the truth. The truth should be important to you, bud. That's the only way you can have Jesus. I don't know how else to tell it to you. That should be common sense. So if anybody wants to talk me out of that, let me know.
just from your first and second wives, were there non-disclosure agreements in connection with those divorces?
Senator, not that I'm aware of.
If there were, would you agree to release those first and second wives from any confidentiality agreement?
Senator, it's not something I'm aware of.
But
So he's not aware if he has an NDA with his previous wives. And the guy asked, he said, well, if you did, would you release them? Well, did we get an answer there yet?
if there were, you would agree to release them from a confidentiality agreement?
Senator, that's not my responsibility.
Did you ever engage in any...
Well, it is his responsibility. If he doesn't mind the truth getting out there, he would release some of those NDAs. But instead, you've got multiple wives that, well, for some reason, you don't want talking. Because it's not his responsibility to get the truth out there.
physical violence against any of your wives?
Senator, absolutely not.
But you would agree with me that if someone had committed physical violence against a spouse, that would be disqualifying to serve as Secretary of Defense, correct?
Senator, absolutely not have I ever done that.
You would agree that that would be a disqualifying offense, would you not?
Senator, you're talking about a hypothetical.
Well, no, he's not talking, he's talking about a hypothetical, but he's saying, if a man goes around hitting women, should he be the Secretary of Defense? The easy answer would be, hey, no, he shouldn't be. But I'm not that guy. But Peter can't say that.
I don't think it's a hypothetical. Violence against spouses occurs every day. And if you as a leader are not capable of saying that physical violence against a spouse should be a disqualifying fact for being secretary of the most powerful nation in the world, you're demonstrating an astonishing lack of judgment. The incident in Monterey led to a criminal charge, a criminal investigation, a private...
I hear this? Criminal charge, criminal investigation. You got to use your own judgment here coming up on this one, fellas and ladies.
and a cash payment to the woman who filed the complaint. And there was also a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
It was a confidential settlement agreement off of a nuisance lawsuit.
Right. During an interview...
So, I don't know. Men of God would certainly never admit to something like that if they didn't do it. They'd go down with the ship. They'd give her all they got to not be painted as that. You know what I mean? They'd be willing to go to jail rather than let someone paint them as that. But I don't know. But when you give an NDA and some money, things got to start. You got to question them, right? Especially with all these running NDAs. You know what I mean? With women. I'm just saying.
Claimed that you settled the matter because you were worried that if it became public, it might hurt your career. Do you maintain that you were blackmailed?
Senator, I maintain that false claims were made against me. And ultimately,
your attorney
those
used the phrase,
he paid for those false claims.
In those false claims.
But you didn't reveal any of this to President Trump or the transition team as they were considering you to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. You did?
Did you hear that? He did not let Trump know. He did not know. Let him know that all this stuff had happened in his life. Like, isn't that something you would just pour out there and say, hey, man, I was innocent? But instead, he tried to hide it. Why do we hide things? I don't know. I don't know.
You didn't reveal the action. You didn't reveal the criminal complaint. You didn't reveal the criminal investigation. You didn't reveal the settlement. You didn't reveal the cash payment. Why didn't you inform the commander-in-chief and the transition team of this very relevant event?
Senator, I've appreciated every part of the process with the transition team. They have been open and honest with me. We've had great conversations between the two of us, and I appreciate the opportunity that President-elect Trump
you chose.
He chose not to answer the question there. Not at all.
Reveal this, right? Because you knew it would hurt your chances. So you chose not to reveal this really important thing to the commander-in-chief and the transition team because you were worried about your chances rather than trying to be candid with the future president.
Yeah, so hide the truth in order to get what you want. Instead of just coming clean and saying, hey, I was falsely charged. And, well, it happens all the time. So I don't know. That's what I would do. I would lay it all out there. But there's a track of NDAs and some few payments. So,
United States. Are there any other important facts that you chose not to reveal to the president-elect and his team as they were considering you to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I sit here before you an open book, as everyone who's watched this.
Has he sounded like an open book? Has he answered the questions the way they were intended to be answered? Or has he skirted the issue and, well...
with multiple non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements tying the hands of many people who would like to comment to us. Much has been made of your workplace behavior as a leader of nonprofit veterans organizations and as a Fox News contributor. Were you fired from either of the leadership positions with the nonprofits?
I was the leader. I was the CEO of
I
Concerned
know
Veterans
which
for
ones,
America and the
those
executive
two.
director
Were
of
you
Vets for
fired?
Freedom.
Were you fired from either?
And I was
of them?
never fired from a
Do you have
veterans organization.
Do you have non-disclosure agreements with either of those organizations?
Not that I'm aware of, Senator.
How do you not know if you have non-disclosure agreement with your workplaces? Hey, you know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality.
They're not anonymous.
The letters on the record here.
They're not anonymous.
On the record.
He said they're anonymous, and this guy's saying they're not anonymous, so he's lying again. Like, and you want to claim to be a man of Jesus. Like, hey, you can't lie to the people, you know what I mean? Like, hey, like the Houthis, when they went after them, they said it was for America, but in those texts, they clearly said it was for Europe. And well, they wanted something. That was Peter's words.
Records with names
Vets
attached.
for Freedom, Concerned Vets for America, and Fox News.
One of your colleagues
working
said,
hard every day on behalf.
One of your colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted, "Kill all Muslims." Another colleague, not anonymous.
And I just got to say, you got to take a look at all of Peter's tattoos as he says that. I don't know if it's true or not. It's a claim. It could be a false one. But then when you look at Peter, like, hey, you can't have hate in your heart for anybody. You know what I mean? If you're going to be a man of Jesus. So I think he's out on the streets lying about Jesus being his Lord and Savior because Peter has not saved himself yet. Peter refuses to. He likes to lie too much. He's Peter Pumpkin Eater.
This said that you took co-workers to a strip club. You were drunk. You tried to dance with strippers. You had to be held off the stage. And one of your employees in that event filed a sexual harassment charge as a result of it. Now, I know you denied these things, but isn't that the kind of behavior that, if true, would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, anonymous false charges.
They're not anonymous. And I'll just conclude and say this to the chairman. You claim that this was all anonymous.
See, they think they're just lying to these people. Pete, you're not just lying to these people. You're lying to all the people. And when you lie to all the people, you're lying to God. And you're lying to yourself. That's why you don't know God. You know what I mean?
We have seen records with names attached to all of these, including the name of your own mother. So don't make this into some anonymous press thing. We have seen multiple names of colleagues consistently throughout your career that have talked about your abusive actions.
Chairman, I think he's over his time. He's way over his time.
I now yield.
And thank you.
And thank you. I don't like putting people down, but I just got to go based off of what they say and their actions. And well, Peter would be not standing in God whatsoever because you just can't be a liar. You can't just say, oh, it's my job. And well, President Trump made me or whatever he wants to have. He's following. Anyways, that's it for today.